All right. So there it is there. Jim Smith is the first server, and the score is 3, and we don't know what the other side has, but we know that he's serving and the score is 3. What else do we know? This again is being able to look back in your scorecard and be able to utilize the information that is
First server.
Say again?
First server.
Yep, the service man tells us he's the first server. What else does it tell us?
It's the second round. They've lost on the first one.
Yeah, good. Well, not only that, this is how many times has he served, or no, I won't go to there. Don't worry
We've
about
already
that.
had one side out.
We have had one side, we've had 2 side out.
Well, we know we've had at least one because I don't see a mark there after the 3.
Right. Okay, but you're right. You're on to something. So let's look at this. This vertical, whoops. Where did it go? Where did it go?
There's a mark before the 1 and
Right.
after.
Right.
And a
so
serve from the left side.
Now, let's just keep on to this side out talk right now. So right here at the beginning, the first server, Mary Smith, served and didn't make any points. We know that. Now we're not worried, and we're not watching by name, but I can go back and tell you, we know Mary Smith was the first server, and we know that no points were scored by that first server because we had a side out, and that's why we put it down there. That could have happened 3 times where it went to the other side team to serve and Mary came back. We don't put 3 different lines down here and keep track of it that way. All we know is that they had a side out when she first served. Then we know that the second serve.
I just have a quick question then. Shouldn't there also be another mark on the other teams? Like, but you're not just illustrating that?
No, we're not worried about it right now. We're just looking at this right now to understand what's happening on one side. Okay, so
Walter here.
Yep.
Can you clarify first server and starting server, please?
Walter's big on that. All right, so the starting server for the match is Mary Smith. The first server right now, Jim Smith, is a first server. So if that's confusing to you, Mary Smith has got the band on. Her name is circled. So she was the match starting server. So every time that the score is even, Mary is going to be in the right-hand box. However, she loses her first server designation. Whenever the score is odd, Jim Smith will be in the right-hand box and will be the starting server for that round. So if the score is 3, 4, 1, for example, and they're coming in at 3, right here, there's a vertical line down here, and they're coming in at 3, we know Jim Smith is going to be in the right-hand court serving. This is so important to understand. This is what you have to understand. But we're going to go back to that in a minute, okay? Because I was on a roll here and trying to talk about this vertical line that goes down here from top to bottom in the box. That's so important. That is the end of their side out indicator. So when Mary Smith started serving the match, the score was 0-0. She served, did not get a point. I know that because we have a vertical line down. It went to the other side. We don't know if they scored points or they didn't. We don't know. We don't care. We come back. Mary Smith served. I know another thing. Mary Smith, when they served, their team did not get any points. They went to the second server, right? There's no first server, no indication that that first server, Mary Smith, got any points or they didn't win any rally.
Right.
So Jim Smith served, and we know that their side won a point. And that's why it went from top left to bottom right. We know then that Jim served and there was an error made, whatever it was, and that we went side out at 1, whatever the score is on the other side. The other side scored, did whatever they did. We come back over to here. We now know that the score was 1 when they came in. Don't look at the red ones, they're new. So just blank it out. We were coming in at 1. That's what we're recreating here. So we're looking at that 1. So who's serving?
Mary serving.
Mary serving?
Mary, yeah.
No.
Jim
Nope.
Smith.
Jim Smith serving.
Jim is serving.
That's right. The score is 1.
It's on.
The score is odd. So the odd player, the person without the band, is going to be in the right-hand court and serving. So important to understand. You've got to get this. We can't move on unless this is 100%. This is the key to the whole refereeing and playing situation. Before you look up, you have to know from the score that's on your score pad what you're going to see when you look at that court. So we know Jim is coming in at 1, or we know the score is 1. We know that we're looking at a non-serving band serving to whatever on the other side. So right now we're happy that Jim is serving. He's the first server for this rally. Jim didn't score any points. Got side out. And they both did. So we have another side out, goes to the other team. We come back to this team again. Now we know, what do we know?
Jim is serving.
Jim is serving again?
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
Which way is it? Oh, sorry, you're right. Sorry, Jim is
Yeah,
serving.
Jim.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Jim is serving because he's number 1. It's an odd score. He'd come in that. So he's serving and he makes 2. Their team makes 2 points. So we know that.
It's
So
not
that-
on Jim's service though.
They-
Jim must have lost a point because the line is going the other way. So Mary scored those 2 points.
No,
No,
no, no. And I'm glad you sort of mentioned that, Jules, because what we're getting at here is that we don't go back and we're not able to track and we don't care what player made what points. That's not what we're tracking for.
Oh, okay.
What we do care is whether they were the first or the second server. That's all that we care. And they're interchangeable. And I think that was Walter's point when he asked me to starting server vice first server. Okay, so we're worried about the starting server for the match. And we know that that's Mary because she's circled. But every rally then starts with a starting server or the first server based on the score. And when the score is odd, we're going to have the non-service band in that right-hand court because we always serve the first serve from the right-hand court, right? No doubt about that. They always start in the right-hand court. And if the score is odd and we don't have the service band, we have the other person, we're good to go. So Jim is starting and Jim made these 2 points, right? So you can't think of it as Mary Smith was our starting server and she's always got the top right to bottom left as the starting server. That's not true, right? It changes every time.
Hey, Alan, can I just ask a quick question here?
Andrew, go ahead.
Just noticing, is it common to have a couple of different colors for the 1 and 2 just to clarify who got what points in, like, before you get a side out?
Believe me, Andrew, you do not want to do that because you got enough going on out there. You want 1 pencil in your kit bag and, or you have a couple up there, but they're all the same.
Yep, sounds good. I was just wondering why there's the black color and then the red.
Just to show you as a slide here that what we're talking about, just to give her some difference.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yep.
So going back to the first box, so Mary Smith served, she missed.
Well, she didn't necessarily, but the team did not score any points on that first rally.
So then it becomes a side out based on that first vertical line.
Correct.
And then I'm a bit confused as to, so then it went to the other team and that diagonal line is the next time they had their serves?
So what we do, so we put the diagonal line down here when Mary Smith missed or their team didn't score any points. We go to the other side and we fill in, do whatever, we bring it back. So now you're not seeing the diagonal lines there at all. There's no diagonal lines. Just think of it as all you're seeing is one vertical line down at the between the X's and the 1, right? So pretend that's all you're seeing. And now what we do is a result of Mary, we know did not score when she served, she didn't make any points. Their team didn't make any points. Jim is serving now as the second server. And we know that because, of course, the dash is going from top left to bottom right and going away from us. So we know that Jim was serving when they made this point. Again, it's not important that Jim was serving, but what's important is that we know it was their second server. So we know if they make an error, what are we calling? We're calling fault, side out. Right? That's what we want to be able to know what's going to happen next. We're not going to call second server because we already are at the second server, and our closed peg would normally be showing us that. And of course, the diagonal on the score sheet tells us that. So we now know that he made the 1 point. They got another side out. We flip it over, goes to the other side. We come back now and don't look at the two red ones. What are you seeing when we're coming back? We're seeing one has got a diagonal in it. So we have to now, because of that vertical line between the 1 and the 2, we know that that was a side out. We're coming in right now. Who's serving?
Jim.
Jim is serving. The second, he's the odd player, and he is serving the next point in the even court.
Mary.
All right. So
I want to interrupt you. Fiona's looking to ask a question. Are you there, Fiona?
I still have one question. I'm sorry, guys. I'm still confused about the diagonal in the very first box.
That was Mary.
that's,
But does that mean Mary scored a point?
no, it was, but all it's telling us, Fiona, is that Jim served at that point and their team made a point.
No, excuse me. I think actually Fiona's correct. If in the very first box,
Yeah,
at
Mary.
the beginning of whenever, Mary clearly got that point because the diagonal
thank
is
you.
the same because she was the starter server, the second server, whatever. So the first point
Okay.
scored was by Mary.
Yeah.
Well,
The
no,
second
it's
point
not the
was scored
first
by
point.
Jim.
Except.
Yeah,
So,
point number 1 has a diagonal going from the top left down to the right, which is Mary's
No,
picture.
that means,
no, I got to step in there real quick and say no.
Yeah,
Okay, tell
there's
us-
a bar
tell us
between
that.
the X's and the 1. There was a side out
No,
I agree.
before that first
Let's
point
be-
was made.
let's be clear here. We're talking right here. I don't know who was talking there after Fiona, who was talking and saying that this was Mary serving here.
Sorry, that's Melody. That is
Melody?
Melody. So
Okay.
just for clarity purposes, if you flip that clothespin over, the line would be coming from the top left corner down to the right. And
Yeah,
that's the
No.
second server is the start of the game or any time, unless maybe I'm completely wrong on that.
I think you're absolutely wrong on that.
Okay.
All right. So
Because I'm
let's,
thinking she's starting the game, right?
well, yeah, but
Because-
she started over here and didn't score any points.
then
Right,
why?
that's why we have the vertical line, not any diagonals. The vertical line indicates side out. Then we we made the first point over here. We've already been through this. If we turn that closed peg has got to turn around and be looking like this because it was the second server that was doing it. And it goes from top left to bottom right. And that's when we've got it.
Oh, I got it.
Right? So that's
Yeah.
Jim Smith serving.
Yeah.
All right? We know now that Jim Smith was serving again when they made 2 more points. And we know that because Jim came in and was the first server when the score was odd, and he scored the second point and he scored the third point. And we know that because our closed peg is indicating here with the top right to bottom left.
Right.
I got
I'm
two
hooked.
waiting,
I'm
waiting questions. One from waiting, sorry. Go ahead.
Who's the
Sorry,
first-
I raised the hand long time ago, so I don't want to bother to ask a question right now. I will ask a question end of the presentation.
Okay, good,
Okay.
fair enough.
Andrew,
But
go ahead.
I'm only seeing about 4 faces out there and you're all looking confused.
Yeah, because
Andrew, you want
can I
to speak?
can I just ask a real quick question? Who's server 1?
Well, again, that was where Walter came in and wanted me to clarify the point. The starting server,
Who's server 1?
well, hang on. Well, the starting server for the match is the person who's circled here,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That does not mean that she is the starting server for every point,
No.
No,
I know.
exactly.
right? So that's why we use this vertical line that goes up and down here. So when we come back in, we know that there was 1 point previously scored and the red ones aren't in there yet. So we turn it over, we look at this vertical line between the 1 and the 2. Where's my cursor? There it is, right? So we know that Jim Smith is going to be serving first.
2.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But
Then
who's
we're on good ground. We're good to go here as long as we know that he's serving. And then we look back on this after it's been done and we know that Jim scored 2 points. So we know the score is 3, whatever. And we also know that it's the first server. So it's 3-1. That's all we needed to indicate here. And that he is serving and continues to be serving right now. Is that clear as mud, or have I got some problems out there?
Well, I just have a point myself. What wasn't really clear when I first looked at when you're describing this on the scorecard is the vertical bar between the X's and the 1. Those are very important. As far as if you don't recognize that bar there, you don't know there was a side out. So that indicates the side out is that bar. So you know that there was a side out before a point was made. So
Yes.
that makes the difference between the score on 1, if it looks like it's the second server there, because it would have been a second server, but if there was no bar at the front, then the second server would have been Mary.
That's right.
So that would have been Mary's score. So it's you have to recognize that those bars, the vertical bars, are very important when you're trying to keep score of the game or where you're at.
You can't keep score without them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so important there. We haven't even got there yet on my slideshow because it's actually going to show you about the vertical mark and to make it, but this came first, so we ended up in that conversation. Another question there, Fiona?
So I'd really like to understand this, and I think I've almost got it. So the first time the first team served, Mary started. She did not score. The vertical line between the X and the 1 is a side out.
Correct.
It then went to the other team and they did whatever, got their
Right.
side out. It came back. And
And
now
who's your first server? Who are you expecting to be serving?
Mary.
Wrong.
Yeah. No, Mary would have been serving on the
Mary would have been
first.
serving. They don't have any
Mary
point.
would be the first server on the second time around.
Okay, sorry, I was here. And you're going back to here, right?
So Mary is serving the second time.
Right.
Mary makes,
They don't make a point.
Does not make a point.
What is confusing is just that the peg or whatever hasn't been changed.
Well, because we're past that point, and where we are with this slide is really showing you that we're on the first server. It's Jim Smith, and he scored 2 points.
Again,
I'm not.
if you, Jim won the first point. So you're right. He's on the even side, and it's a side out. Now, before he makes the second point, he got a fault, or there's a fault, and then Mary goes back, because I'm pretty sure that the point number 2 and point number 3 were done when Mary was serving.
No.
Anybody have a problem with that? Anybody want to dispute that?
No, I think it's just the way the illustration is. It's just confusing because of the way there's only one sheet to look at, and we're looking at several switches. And that's
Use
why-
your own pegs and flip them when you need to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jim made the first 2 red points.
Guys, this is key, and you don't have to look at the other side. All we're doing here is we have a problem with this side, so we want to go back, and I can tell you exactly what had happened. Okay, and well, let's just go through this again. Mary Smith started the game. The score was 0-0-2. They did not score any points. Went to the other side. Come back to this side. We're coming back in. The vertical line is here, so we know that Mary is still serving. Mary served. Mary did not make any points because there's no diagonals going from her side down as the first server for that first point. We know that Jim Smith scored as the second server over here. Then there was a side out, goes to the other side. This is what this slide is showing you right now, is that we're coming back in. The score is 1, whatever, 1. And we know that it's 1 because Jim Smith is serving and our clip is above his name. So we now know we're putting in a dash because their teams got a point, got 2 points while he was serving, the second and the third point. That's all we know at this point. We don't know what else happens, but we know something, that if they make a fault, we are going to say what as the referee?
Fault, second server.
Very good. You're with me. That's exactly what you say. Fault, second server. And over to Mary now as the second server. Where's Mary going to be standing?
On the left.
Left-hand court. Absolutely. So we have the service band. We don't know what the score is on the other side, but she's going to be in the left-hand court, serving diagonally to that court, to whomever. So that's what that tells us, and that goes through. So that was an awful lot of dialogue and understanding, but that's good because you need to get your head in it and you need to understand. And as Kevin pointed out, we haven't had that conversation yet about this vertical line, but already we have learned that that vertical line is one of the most important points that you need to put on the scorecard. Every time there's a side out, that vertical line must go in. If it doesn't go in, you have no hope in hell of keeping the score correct because you don't know where you started at that particular rally. So it is absolutely the most important mark on that score sheet. Without it, you don't know where they're coming in. You don't know what side anybody's standing on.
Was anybody confused on what Al just went through? He did it point by point very correctly as well.
The only thing I'm still confused on is how, and it looks like by the writing up there, maybe one other person is confused. It looks to me like Mary scored once and Jim scored twice, but now you're saying Jim scored all those 3 points.
That is correct. Jim served to score all those points.
That's true. He did.
But hi, Alan. Just a couple of comments there. I think we're getting hung up on who's scoring points when we really shouldn't. And the other thing there too is I know you're saying right and left side there. Do you also use even and odd?
Yes, even and odd court.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That helps.
Right. I mean, yeah, we weren't breaking it down as to who scored the points. I wanted to make that distinction, but it's important to know who was serving when the point was made because we want to know if it was the first or the second server only, not their names. And that's why this is a good slide because Jim did score all the points and he's got a slash going right and left. So it depends again on that peg's position. So what I do still today, when I'm making the mark in here, if I'm going to put a mark in here over here, before I put it in, I look and glance over here, Jim serving, and there's my hint that the dash is going that way. I look at my close peg. Based on it, that's why I have the dash there. I know to put it that way. If we turn it over and it's number 2, the dash is going the other way, and Mary Smith served it, then it would go from the top right to our top left, sorry, to the bottom right. Where'd my, oh, right there, like that. All right, let's move on.